if protecting the life of a baby writhing on the table, having survived an abortion procedure, if that's too much, again, what precisely are we dialoguing about?
Hello everyone, I'm Joseph Dinesh, a Catholic commentator from Sydney, Australia. Today, I feel compelled to address a critical issue that emerged during the recent presidential debate between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. For those who watched, there was a striking moment when Harris' remarks on abortion revealed what I believe to be one of the most brazen acts of dishonesty and moral deceit we have seen from an American politician in recent memory. This wasn't just a political rhetoric, it was a deliberate attempt to mask one of the greatest moral evils of our time. Let's begin by watching a key clip from the debate, followed by a powerful critique from Bishop Barron, who sheds light on the Democratic Party's current stance on abortion. Let's listen.
They have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote.
Except for Trump misspeaking and saying West Virginia instead of Virginia, which he corrected later in his remarks, that's all true. Now let's look at the moderators and Harris's lies and distortions about late-term abortion and infanticide in the United States.
Would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and in asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America.
You should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer the question? Would you
because
veto?
Under Roe v. Wade,
answer the question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump.
To fully grasp the gravity of this issue, we need to look at the historical context of the Democratic Party's position on abortion. After the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision, the party framed abortion as something that should be rare, safe, and legal. This approach seemed at that time to balance legal rights with sense of moral restraint. However, over the years, their platform has shifted dramatically. Today, the Democratic Party supports abortion up until birth, and in some states, legislation has been proposed that could even condone infanticide. Many people are unaware of the extremity of the Democratic Party's current position because it has been rebranded as women's healthcare, effectively obscuring the harsh reality. As Catholics, we must see beyond this deceptive language and confront the evil of abortion for what it truly is. Now let's turn to Bishop Barron, who expresses his frustration with the difficulty of engaging Democratic Party leaders on this issue. Let's listen.
My major problem with the Democratic Party of today is this very extreme position that they've taken on abortion. And I said, that's where I just, really balk. At which point my interlocutors all said, how important it is to dialogue between the church and pro-abortion right politicians. And I said, yeah, okay, I'm for a dialogue. The church has always said, though obviously we oppose all abortions, we'd love to see a complete ban of abortion. Nevertheless, we'll dialogue if you're willing to set some restrictions. We'll talk to you about that. We'll get behind bills that would restrict the taking of innocent life. So I said, yeah, I'm open to dialogue. But then I began sort of testing the waters. I said, okay, let's say we're having a conversation about this issue. Would you be willing, for example, to limit third trimester abortions? Answer came back, no. I said, how about so-called partial birth abortion. You know, the procedure by which a child basically in the birth canal is killed. Answer came back, no, we would not be willing to give on that. So I said, okay, how about the born alive legislation? You know what that's about? These are laws that say we should protect a child who has somehow, by a miracle, managed to survive an abortion procedure and is now on the table. Would you be willing to support that legislation? And the answer came back, no. And just so you don't think the group I was talking to was particularly intransigent, just a few months ago, Senator Ben Sass proposed this legislation. He said, look, can't we all agree across the aisle that, you know, a baby writhing on the table, having survived an abortion procedure, should be protected? Can we all agree with that? And of course, he didn't get the votes to break the Democratic filibuster. So see, here is my question. I said, all right, dialogue. Let's talk about it. But if this is the case, what exactly are we dialoguing about? I asked. In any real dialogue, it seems to me, there's a kind of give and take. There's a willingness to, you know, each side going a few steps in the other direction. I think of the many interreligious and ecumenical dialogues I've been involved in over the years. I mean, no one expected the people in those conversations to be somehow religiously neutral or to give up their religious convictions, but the condition for the possibility of a real dialogue is some kind of give and take, some quest for common ground. Usually we'd find, you know, points of contact between our religious perspectives. So I pressed the matter with the politicians. Are you willing to give on this question at all? If protecting the life of a baby writhing on the table, having survived an abortion procedure, if that's too much, again, what precisely are we dialoguing about?
As Bishop Barron states, if the conversation focused on limiting abortion to the first 3 or 6 months, there might be room for meaningful dialogue. Catholics could work toward minimizing harm and protecting life within the framework of current law and policy. In such cases, we could advocate for stricter limits that could save as many lives as possible. But unfortunately, the current reality is far more alarming. How can Catholics engage in a reasonable conversation with a party that refuses to recognize the inherent value of human life? This is not just policy disagreement, it's a deep moral divide. To better illustrate this divide, let me offer an analogy. Imagine 2 firefighters tasked with saving a forest from a wildfire. One firefighter wants to control the fire by putting it out section by section, trying to save as much of the forest as possible. The other, however, believes the fire should be allowed to burn freely, even if it destroys large portions of the forest. The first firefighter proposes various strategies, perhaps containing the fire to a small area or at least protecting the largest trees. But the second insists on letting the fire spread without any restrictions. The first firefighter grows increasingly frustrated because there is no common ground. They can't protect the forest at all if the second firefighter refuses to see the value in saving it. In this analogy, the first firefighter represents the Catholic perspective, striving to limit harm and protect life. The second firefighter represents the Democratic Party's stance, advocating for unrestricted abortion, allowing the fire of abortion policies to spread unchecked. The fundamental disagreement is so stark that productive discussion becomes impossible, as one side doesn't even recognize the need to protect the forest, just as the Democratic Party refuses to acknowledge the sanctity of human life. Now I would like to share a few powerful quotes on abortion that I believe will stir our hearts and inspire us to reflect deeply on the need to defend the innocent against this great evil. First, Pope Francis said, "It is not progressive to try to resolve problems by eliminating a human life. Abortion is not a lesser evil. It is a crime. It is to throw someone out in order to save another. That is what the mafia does. It is a crime and absolute evil." Saint Pope John Paul II said, "The right to life means the right to be born and then continue to live until one's natural death. And abortion, euthanasia, and any willful destruction of human life are therefore all violations of that most fundamental right. A nation that kills its own children is a nation without hope." Lastly, Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta said, "If we accept that a mother can kill even her own child, how can we tell other people not to kill one another?" Any country that accepts abortion is not teaching its people to love, but to use violence to get what they want. I feel the greatest destroyer of peace today is abortion because it is a war against the child, a direct killing of the innocent child, murder by the mother herself. I hope this video was helpful. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. God bless you.